The werewolf hunter known as John was known to be the best in the business. He had been tracking werewolves for decades, and his reputation preceded him. When a small town called Westfield became plagued by a powerful and elusive werewolf, the townsfolk knew who to call. The werewolf had been terrorizing the town for months, attacking and killing anyone who crossed its path. Its attacks were brutal and left behind a trail of carnage. The townspeople were living in fear, and the authorities had no clue on how to deal with the creature. That's when John received a call. The voice on the other end of the line was that of the town sheriff, who explained the situation and offered him a job. John was reluctant to take the job at first, as he had been on the brink of retirement, but he knew that he was the only one who could take down the creature. John arrived in Westfield the next day, armed with his trusty silver bullets, a shotgun, and a variety of other weapons. The townspeople were relieved to see him and welcomed him with open arms. The hunter wasted no time in getting to work. He began to track the werewolf through the forest, following its trail of destruction. The creature was smart and cunning, and John soon realized that this was no ordinary werewolf. It was stronger and faster than any werewolf he had ever encountered before. As he continued to track the werewolf, John began to piece together the creature's origins. He learned that the town had a dark past and that the werewolf was connected to it in some way. It all started over a century ago when a group of settlers came to the town. They were a peculiar bunch, and the townsfolk soon realized that they were not like any other settlers they had ever seen. They were secretive and kept to themselves, never venturing out of their cabins during the day. Rumors began to circulate that the settlers were werewolves, and that they were conducting dark rituals in the forest. The townspeople tried to investigate, but the settlers were always one step ahead of them. Eventually, the townspeople gave up, and the settlers were left alone. Years went by, and the settlers' descendants continued to live in the town. The townspeople had long forgotten about the rumors, and life went on as usual. However, every so often strange things would happen. Livestock would go missing, and there were reports of strange howls in the forest at night. Then, one day, the attacks began. The werewolf had awoken, and it was more powerful than ever. It seemed to have a vendetta against the townspeople, and no one knew what. John continued to track the werewolf, and his journey led him deep into the forest. As he approached a clearing, he saw the werewolf standing in the center, staring straight at him. The werewolf was massive, standing at over 7 feet tall, with fur as black as midnight. Its eyes glowed red in the darkness, and its jaws were dripping with blood. John raised his shotgun and took aim. He fired off several shots, but the werewolf was too quick. It dodged each bullet with ease and began to charge towards him. The hunter quickly switched to his silver bullets, knowing that they were the only thing that could stop the creature. He fired off a shot, and it hit the werewolf in the chest. The creature stumbled, but it did not go down. The werewolf lunged at John, its jaws open wide. John managed to dodge the attack, but the werewolf was too quick. It landed a blow to John's side, and he went down. The hunter struggled to his feet, his shotgun falling to the ground. He knew he was in trouble. The werewolf was now on top of him, its jaws mere inches from his face. He could feel its hot breath on his skin, and he closed his eyes, waiting for the end. But the end did not come. Instead, the werewolf let out a loud howl and ran off into the forest. John lay there, stunned, wondering why the creature had spared his life. As he lay there, he remembered something he had heard about werewolves. They were known to have a strong sense of honor, and they only attacked those who they perceived as a threat. John realized that the werewolf had spared him because he was not a threat. He was merely doing his job, trying to protect the people of Westfield from a dangerous creature. The hunter made his way back to town, his wounds aching. The townspeople were shocked to see him alive and well, and they all thanked him for his bravery. But John knew that the werewolf was still out there, and he knew that he would have to face it again. He spent the next few days gathering information, trying to piece together the werewolf's movements. As he dug deeper, he uncovered a disturbing truth. The werewolf was not just any creature. It was the descendant of the original settlers, the ones who had been rumored to be werewolves over a century ago. The settlers had made a deal with the dark force in the forest, offering sacrifices in exchange for power. The power had been passed down through generations, and now the werewolf was the manifestation of that power. John knew that he had to end this once and for all. He made his way back into the forest, armed with his silver bullets and his resolve. He found the werewolf once again, standing in the same clearing as before. This time the creature did not hesitate to attack. It lunged at John, its jaws snapping shut. John was ready, though. He fired off several shots, each one hitting the creature in the chest. The werewolf stumbled, but it did not go down. John realized that he needed to do something drastic. He reached into his bag and pulled out a silver dagger. He charged at the werewolf, plunging the dagger into its heart. The werewolf let out a final howl, and then it was silent. John stood there panting, his clothes covered in blood. He had done it. He had taken down the most powerful werewolf he had ever faced. But as he made his way back to town, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had unleashed something even more dangerous. The power that the settlers had dealt with was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for someone to uncover it. And John knew that he was the only one who could stop it. Over the next few weeks, John researched the history of Westfield and the settlers who had made the deal with the dark force in the forest. He found out that the sacrifices made by the settlers were not just animals, but also human. The thought of innocent people being sacrificed for power made John sick to his stomach. He knew that he had to put an end to the dark force once and for all, but he wasn't sure how. One night, as he sat alone in his cabin, John heard a strange noise outside. He grabbed his gun and cautiously made his way outside. There, standing in the moonlight, was a figure unlike any he had ever seen. It was a woman, but her skin was as pale as the moon, and her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. She beckoned to John, and he followed her deeper into the forest. As they walked, the woman spoke to John in a language he didn't understand, but somehow he knew what she was saying. She was offering him power, the same power that the settlers had been granted all those years ago. John was tempted. He knew that the power could help him protect the people of Westfield and put an end to the darkness once and for all. But he also knew that the power came at a cost. He thought about the sacrifices made by the settlers, the innocent lives lost in exchange for power. He couldn't do the same thing, no matter how much he wanted to. With a heavy heart, John refused the woman's offer. She disappeared into the darkness, leaving John standing alone in the forest. The next day, John gathered the people of Westfield together and told them the truth about the town's dark past. He explained that the werewolf he had killed was only the beginning, and that there was still a dark force out there that needed to be dealt with. Together, they made a plan to rid the forest of the dark force once and for all. They worked tirelessly, gathering information and resources, and finally they were ready. On the night of the full moon, they made their way into the forest, armed with silver weapons and their resolve. They fought long and hard, battling against the creatures that lurked in the darkness. In the end, they were victorious. The dark force was banished, and the town of Westfield was safe once again. John retired from hunting after that, knowing that he had done all he could to protect the people of Westfield. But he never forgot the lessons he had learned in the forest about the dangers of power and the importance of sacrifice. Years later, as he lay on his deathbed, John thought back on his life and the battles he had fought. He knew that he had made a difference, that he had protected the innocent and stood up to the darkness. And in his final moments, John smiled, knowing that his legacy would live on, and that the people of Westfield would always remember the hunter who had saved their town from the horrors of the forest. If you like my story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like the video for more and similar stories.